Well, as much as I wish I were there in person, and I'm sure will be next year, thank God for Zoom, which came without warning and really has made all this possible. Can you imagine the pandemic without the internet, without Zoom? So we've all been living through the greatest disruption of our lifetime. Nothing comes close. And I'm going to be an optimist and hope that we're really beginning to move out of all this that we've experienced. So what I want to do is I really want to look at who are the winners and losers as we emerge from COVID. What are the companies and which are the industries that thrived and are going to really be positioned for the future, and who has really been pushed back? So let's start. And let's get the negative out of the way first. Let's look at the losers. And the first loser coming out of COVID is cash. Americans never wanted to be cashless. We screamed at the possibility that we were going to eliminate the penny, the world's most worthless piece of metal. But COVID pushed us into a cashlessness that most of us didn't want. The very beginning, many were afraid that cash itself contained the virus. We now know that's not true. Merchants wanted contactless delivery and pickup, and therefore insisted on credit cards or debit cards. We moved to cash and we found that we liked it. Today, cash is our fourth choice for how we want to buy things. The only thing that is behind cash is checks, which are almost disappearing. Second loser, sadly, is Uber on two levels. One, there are enormous subsidies, up to 60% of every ride that has come from their extraordinary financing. That's beginning to disappear, and that meant independent of anything, their prices were going to go up. And now we're facing these serious labor shortages where they can't find drivers. There's going to be no alternative to much higher Uber prices. Third loser, we think, and this is not a tough one to call, is Facebook. Facebook, we think, finally has hit the wall. The research that shows that they knew Instagram was damaging to teenage girls, that their business model of engagement through advertising was based on the understanding, well accepted, that the best path to engagement was to stir people up and get them angry, to the fact that now Facebook will not share its internal research, will not let external researchers have access to their information, and now are filling their news feeds with pro-Facebook information. It's finally too much. And while nothing is going to happen to Facebook in the short term, in the long term, I really do believe they face serious regulatory problems, not just because of their size, because we think Amazon and Google and Apple will escape that kind of scrutiny, but because of their policies. And they are a remarkably easy company to break up, considering they're three or more separate companies with Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and you could even add Oculus and other things that they've acquired. Another loser, sadly, is in-person shopping. Not going away. Our work shows that as soon as people felt it was safe, we were just itching to get out of the house. We wanted to be in shopping malls. We wanted to be around other people. We wanted to touch goods and talk to salespeople, but we were doing the buying at home. We were going to malls almost as showrooms. Our work shows that of the people who never bought a thing before COVID, never bought a thing online before COVID started, within a month, 37% of them had become buyers. And people who had never bought some things online, like food, became frequent buyers. Those gains are not being lost. We want to be back in the mall because we want to get out of the house and see other people, but not because we want to buy. Our buying worked just fine online. Other losers, commercial real estate. Doesn't take a genius to see this. There's no one who runs an office who isn't asking themselves, do we need all this space? Do we need any space. The happiest people in the world are those whose leases are just about to come up and can renegotiate. The unhappiest ones are the ones who signed long-term leases in January of 2020. I don't think we're going to see massive numbers of people working from home full time, but there isn't a scenario where some people are not working at home. Some of the time, we're going to see commercial real estate begin to shrink a bit, and we're going to be looking at things like turning office buildings into residential, depending on how they are built. That can be very easy or extraordinarily difficult, but there's no way commercial real estate doesn't lose. Business travel, also a loser. We think a third of business travel has gone away forever. There are three reasons, and an IAB audience knows this well. There are three reasons people travel for business: to establish or build business, to maintain business, and to go to meetings or conferences. Well, the second two, the maintaining and the going to meetings or conferences, can be done from Zoom. That doesn't mean it's always going to be, but it means we're going to be going to fewer but more meaningful conferences. A lot of business maintenance can be done online, but building business, meeting a client, somebody who's going to invest tens of millions of dollars in you, normally comes after they've looked in your eyes, shaked your hand, and handshaking and hugging are back, to my surprise, but I'm actually pleased. But we think a third of business travel disappears forever. We'll talk about leisure travel in a minute, where it's a very different story. And the last loser coming out of COVID, and this is the most serious, is mental health. The state of mental health in America and other countries around the world. I have friends in Melbourne who has gone through the longest lockdown of any region on earth, 280 days. The state of their mental health is really precarious. Now, we've known with Gen Z that there have been mental health issues, anxiety, loneliness, depression before COVID. They have been greatly accelerated. They extend to larger percentages of the population. In some of the COVID we did, we saw that Gen Z reported that their mental health was considerably worse than that of people 65 and above. Now, that's sad, but not a shock. What was a shock was that Gen Z also reported their physical health was worse than that of their grandparents, 65 and above. And Gen Z, it's not that you can't have somebody in Gen Z who has cancer or a serious illness, but that's the healthiest time of our lives. I think every business, every school is going to have to address mental health issues, professionals in school, at least for the next couple of years. So on a more positive note, let's look at the winners. The winner on any list for the last 20 years, and high on this list, Amazon. Amazon just flourished. In the first 4 months of COVID, their profits were up 60%. Now, we see lots of $10 million companies that catch fire and their profits are up 60%. But Amazon went into COVID a $1 trillion company. And for a $1 trillion company to see a 60% increase in profits is just extraordinary. And Amazon's just getting started. They're now almost a $2 trillion company, and yet they're only in 3 industries: retail, entertainment with Amazon Prime Video, and cloud with Amazon Web Services. And they're only in 20 countries. They're going to expand from 3 to 8 to 10 industries. I say to be amusing, but I mean it, that Jeff Bezos has a list. I don't know if he keeps it in the most secure bank vault in Seattle or in his upper shirt pocket, but a list of all the industries he plans to disrupt and in which order. In our COVID work, we asked people in the health area, if a non-healthcare company were to enter to offer coverage, who would you like to see? We gave them 15 choices: Amazon, Google, Facebook, Walmart, Starbucks, Costco, McDonald's. Number one choice was Amazon. Facebook, incidentally, rated about even with the local gas station, which is about where they belong. And then in the banking sector, we asked if a non-banking company were to enter banking financial services, who would you like to see? The same list, Amazon comes out on top. We ask people, why Amazon? And they say, I know them, I trust them, they deliver good service and value. So if they're a $2 trillion company with 3 industries in 20 countries, in the next 10 years, they're going to be in 10 industries, and the 2 that I just mentioned, banking and healthcare, are 2 of the biggest there are, and they're going to be in 100 countries. They could be a $20 trillion company. They're just getting started. Second big winner, Disney, who started the pandemic as the biggest loser of all the entertainment companies. Disney had the most to lose. They had dominated box office. In 2019, there were $9 billion films. 7.5 of them were Disney. The half was Spider-Man, Far From Home with Sony. Theaters were closed within days. Then their theme parks were closed. Then their cruise ships were shut down. Disney stock in March of 2020 was $85. Their one bright spot was 4 months before the pandemic, they premiered Disney Plus, caught on, a huge hit of The Mandalorian. Disney Plus is now the center of the entire company that has been reorganized. And even before the old businesses reopened, Disney's stock in March of 2021 went from a year earlier at $85 to $201. And now theaters are open, and they've had a huge hit with Shang-Chi. Their theme parks are open. Their cruise ships are coming back. Another winner, chip manufacturers, semiconductor chip manufacturers. There's only 3 that make the massively powerful chips: TSMC in Taiwan, Samsung in Korea, and Intel in the US. We know there's a chip shortage. That is a 6-month waiting list for many automobiles, because automobiles have turned from transportation vehicles to computers on wheels. But even our toasters, washing machines, there's a 7-month delay on refrigerators, comes from the shortage of chips. And chip manufacturers, their importance and their value has just risen through the roof. Electric vehicles, also big winners. This was coming before COVID. It just accelerated. Certainly was not hurt by the fact that gas prices now in California are close to $5 a gallon, pushing people to electric. But Tesla is valued higher than all the other, not just in any one, all of the other automobile companies put together. There's a long waiting list for Teslas, not just because of chips, but because of demand. Electronic vehicles really have hit the mainstream. Every brand, every automobile manufacturer is planning to move to full electric. Countries are starting to ban internal combustion. Norway in the next 2 years, other countries at different points. Movie theaters are big winners coming out of COVID. As theaters were closed and everything moved to streaming, and you could pay a surcharge to get some films on Disney or Universal, it looked like theaters would never open again. But as with shopping malls, we want to get out of the house. It's a social experience. When movies, HBO Max, put the same movies in the theater as were on HBO Max the same day, people still went to see them in the theater, starting with Godzilla versus Kong. And there's no doubt movie theaters will survive and are an important part of our lives. An unexpected winner, and one that's going to go long, it's going to be much more significant than just COVID, is labor. Since I was a little boy, we have seen power shift from labor to management. Labor unions get weaker, management getting more powerful. That is now changing. We know that 50% of the American workforce says they want to be in a different job. 40% says in the next 5 years they want to be in a different industry. I already mentioned Uber can't get drivers. You may only see housekeeping in luxury hotels because hotels can't find housekeepers. We know that in places like restaurants, many of them can't open except for dinner. They can't be open for other meals because they can't find help. In New York City, windows are plastered with promises of $1,000 signing bonuses if you'll join for the wait staff. Childcare is experiencing shortages. All of that means power is moving to labor and prices are going to go up. This is the reversal of a 60-year trend. Couple of other winners, leisure travel. Well, business travel, we think a third of it is gone. Leisure travel will explode. We are going to be doing some of our work from home. We're going to get sick of the same four walls. Our desire to get out, the pent-up desire at first, but then the natural desire to get out. We think we think leisure travel, not business travel, is going to be at levels we've never seen. Telemedicine, our work shows that 75% of people have used or want to use telemedicine. The satisfaction rate is an astonishing 89%. People really like it. They like that there's no commute. There's no waiting in a waiting room for the doctor. There's no waiting in a waiting room with other sick people around us. The 11% who don't like it, there's no actual thing they don't like. They just don't feel like they've seen a doctor. It's an emotional. I think you're never going to see your doctor again face to face, except to establish the relationship. As we talked about, that's hard to do on Zoom. And if you have an illness or a problem that needs to be seen or touched. And we think telemedicine is absolutely here to stay. Crypto has made it past its early days of suspicion and skepticism. For years, we have thought of crypto, particularly Bitcoin, as a place for money launderers, terrorists, drug dealers. That's now changing. The government of El Salvador has now officially adopted Bitcoin as a currency. Our American Fed is not going to resist it. It is an incredible tool for international commerce, whether we like it or not. And some of us like it and some of us are terrified. It is now entering the mainstream. It may not be Bitcoin, but it will be crypto. And the last winner, and this one really caught me off guard, cannabis came out of COVID as an extraordinary winner. Our work shows that even 50% of people who identify as very conservative support the availability of cannabis. Cannabis use was up considerably. 40% of Americans said they were using a lot more cannabis than they used before COVID. And this is also something that has really begun to hit the mainstream. Big merchants like Walmart are looking into selling cannabis. The interest comes from, of course, there are people who want to get high and use THC, but we know anxiety levels are through the roof. CBD may help meet that need. We know that CBD is good for chronic pain, whether from arthritis or whether from surgery or cancer, PTSD. I'm not trying to sell cannabis, but talking about the size of the market. Age doesn't matter. Most people don't want to smoke cannabis. That's old hippies. It's edibles and it's oils and it's all kinds of others, but cannabis is here, about to become a massive industry. So those are, we think, a year and a half in, those are the winners and losers coming out of COVID. The world, as we know, will never be the same. Let's just hope that we really are coming out of COVID. Thank you. Wish it could be there. Hope next time.